the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star.
Greetings, and as always, welcome back. One person, one vote. That's an often used term to advocate for the principle of equal representation in voting. It is used by advocates of democracy and political equality, especially with regard to electoral reform such as universal suffrage, direct elections, and proportional representation. This concept is one of the fundamental tenets of what many refer to as Jeffersonian democracy. Section 1 of the 15th Amendment, which was ratified in 1870, reads as follows, quote, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude," end quote. But that had to be followed up by the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the landmark U.S. federal law that prohibits racial discrimination in voting. That's all very clear and very simple. So why is it so difficult to apply and enforce? Why is the constitutionally protected right to vote continuously under attack? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. With each show, my guests and I provide insight and analysis into current events and the broader historical context in which most of these events take place. I want to quickly touch on two headlines. First, yesterday, as I listened to the president from the Knesset in Israel, he rambled on about a lot of things, but there was one issue that was swept to the side. If this is truly, as he claims, the historic dawn of a new Middle East, where do the Palestinians fit in this future? What is the plight and long-term future of the Palestinians? The Washington Post frames it as follows. Trump's Israel victory lap ignored plight of Palestinians, difficulty of lasting peace. In touting his Gaza ceasefire win, the president projected optimism for a wider peace while sidestepping the many issues that remain. And also, where was Benjamin Netanyahu in Egypt? Why didn't he go? Maybe he was afraid of getting arrested. Marjorie Taylor Greene, tearing into her own party, says GOP men in Congress are quote unquote weak. Quote, "There's a lot of weak Republican men and they're more afraid of strong Republican women," Greene said. Wow. Who would have ever thought that the GOP would move so far to the right that Marjorie Taylor Greene would be the voice of reason in the party? Who would have thought that Trump would be so caustic that Americans would wax poetic and romantic, longing for the good old days of that superior intellect, George W. Bush? My, how things have changed. The issue before us is voting rights and the Louisiana v. Callais case. Is this the end of the Voting Rights Act? Let's talk to my guests. We are joined by the president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition. She's internationally renowned for contributions on critical justice issues, including the passage of the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1991 and 2006, reauthorization of provisions of the Voting Rights Act. Her resume is incredibly long, too long to go in now. She is attorney Barbara Arnwine. As always, Barbara, good morning. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be back.
We're also joined by the board chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Again, a resume way too long to read. Daryl Jones, Attorney Daryl Jones, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Doc. Welcome. Thanks. It's great to be back. Great to be back.
Barbara, let me start with you and ask you my open. I thought the issue. I think the issue is really pretty simple. I mean, it's laid out in the Constitution. It's laid out in established law. But here we are in 2025, seeming to still fight the same battle. Barbara Arnwine.
Well, first of all, let's start at step one. The persons who have opposed African American political power have never gone away. Those forces have never gone away. They have been beaten back. They have been withheld. They have been embarrassed. They have been all kinds of things, but they have never gone away. It's no accident that Project 2025 talks about what? The Reagan Revolution as its fundamental starting point, the 1980s. They've been at this war for over 6 decades, where they have fought to make, as Dr. Carol Anderson calls it, one person, no vote. It is what they are after. The people got to understand. I have said repeatedly since I published The Map of Shame in 2011, talking about all the voter suppression going on in this modern era, which has only gotten worse since in that period of time. With the Supreme Court's case in decision in Shelby that made it worse. But I predicted that whole presidential elections would turn based on voter suppression. But I also said, and I've been saying it loud and clearly, that these anti-democracy forces are just that. It's not that they're just anti-Black. They don't believe in democracy, period. They don't believe in fair representation. They don't believe in the right to vote. They don't believe in anti-discrimination. They believe in oligarchy, plutocracy. They believe in any other system, theocracy, whatever you want, as long as it's not democracy where you have true political representation based upon the people who show up and vote. We have been an out of sync, absolutely discombobulated democracy for at least since the beginning, but worse now. The whole goal of the Constitution is to form a more perfect union. Well, we have been actually dismantling the right to vote. And please, people, if you think this is only about Black folks, be very aware that there's a whole movement out there in the far, far right that's talking about how women should be denied the right to vote. They believe in second-class citizenship. They have no intention of ever sharing power. And so it's our obligation to push back even harder than we ever have. And I'm going to stop there.
Daryl, same question to you. You've been a an attorney a number of years. You're civil rights and social justice and voting rights. You've been in this game a long time. It's simple. It's the 15th Amendment is pretty clear. You don't have to have gone to law school and taken con law from I took it from Pierre Loiseau at UC Davis, which is interesting because that's the home of the Bakke case. But it's pretty simple. But again, we're still in 2025 engaged in the same battle. Daryl Jones.
You know, Dr. Leon, since the passage of the 15th Amendment, there's been a lot of work immediately to take away, suppress Black people from being able to vote from the very beginning. So it's not wild to imagine that we're now at a point where we're at this Callais case, right, where we're dealing with the right to vote once again. This time, they're going through the court system to try to dismantle and stop primarily Black and brown citizens from being able to access the ballot. This is completely about power, is what we're dealing with. And let's understand the Klay case, as it's laid out. And what happens in this Klay case is that it comes out of the state of Louisiana. And footnote, the state of Louisiana in 2020 did their census, right, as the rest of the country did as well. And as a result of that, they learned that there was this influx of African Americans into the state of Louisiana. Well, one of the things that the census is principally used for is to determine congressional representation. So as a result of the census in Louisiana, it was determined that Louisiana merited a second majority minority district. Not too difficult to understand. But what then happens is that the state of Louisiana, that has the third highest Black population by percentage in the country, trailing only behind Georgia and Mississippi. Louisiana, the legislature there says, you know what? We're not going to give up. They're going to give y'all a second member of Congress. That's not going to happen. It's going to mess up the whole balance of what we're trying to do of being in control of everything. And so Louisiana then the state legislature in Louisiana then draws the redistricting lines to not include the second congressional majority minority district, in direct violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which simply says, you should have fair representation and a fair opportunity to be able to elect the candidate of your choosing that aligns with your ideology and your beliefs, and particularly stopping anything that's going to interfere and use race as an oppressive force to be able to stop that. So what the state legislature in Louisiana did is that they drew this map that said, no, we ain't giving you your second district. We don't care what the census says. Then Press Robinson and several other African Americans out of Louisiana, Press Robinson's a longtime civil rights advocate and voting rights advocate, files a lawsuit in the federal district court. And in that lawsuit, the federal district court judge says, you know what, Mr. Robinson, you're going to win in this. You're absolutely right. This is a violation of the second Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. So, this map is going to be unconstitutional. Legislature in Louisiana, you need to redraw this map. Well, what does the legislature say? We ain't doing it. We ain't going to redraw the map. And then finally, when the U.S. District Court says, well, we're going to redraw it for you. If you're not going to do it, we'll do it. At that point, the legislature in Louisiana then redraws the map to include a second majority minority district. Got to remember, the whole thing there is they're protecting who? They're protecting Steve Scalise, Representative Steve Scalise, one of the leaders in the House. They're protecting the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who's also in Louisiana. So they want to protect that basis of power that they have there. So they finally redraw the map. Well, after they redraw the map, some of the white folk in Louisiana say, not so fast. Wait a minute. This whole Voting Rights Act thing, it violates our equal protection. This is reverse discrimination. You're discriminating against us now. And so they filed suit. and they were prevailing in the courts there in Louisiana. So now these issues are now before the U.S. Supreme Court, which is the Louisiana versus Callais case that was going to be heard on Wednesday at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. This is what this is all about, Dr. Leon. We have gotten to the point now that if Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act is struck down as being unconstitutional, which is the argument that's being made, what will happen is that currently we have 62 members of the Congressional Black Caucus. It's already predicted and predicated that they'll lose at least 20 to 22 of those seats through the redistricting process. This is what this fight is all about. This is what Dr. Carol Anderson was talking about when she said one person, no vote. They're diluting the vote, so it's like you have no vote at all, no say at all in the representation that directly impacts your life. That's what this is about, and about the future of the Voting Rights Act, because for all intents and purposes, if they strike it down, there will be no protection. There will be nothing there to protect black and brown voters when they're being discriminated against with redistricting and other methods of discrimination and voter suppression that occurs across this country.
So, Barbara, go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, and not only will it destroy, and is it designed to destroy Black and brown and Native American and Asian political power in the U.S., it will destroy our democracy. I mean, because democracy, we have what's called a Republican democracy system. And that means that you indirectly represent representatives, not direct democracy where you would all just be somewhere voting yourself, but you elect a representative who is to vote in your best interest, for your district's best interest. Well, what would happen is that what they're counting on is that if they can throw out the CBC members and they can throw out the Latino members, then your progressive members of caucus are gone. I mean, it will leave a very thin line of progressive Congress people. So all of you who out there who care about gun control, everybody who cares about women's rights, everybody who cares about educational equality, everybody who's upset about income inequality, forget about it. Because if you look at the Congressional Progressive Caucus, if you look at the CBC's agenda and the Tri-Caucus agenda, you will realize that's where most of the progressive arguments come out of, the squad, all of that. Look who constitutes those members. And so this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to go to a far right form of government that would not be a representative government, that would be some kind of, elitist, QAnon, God knows what else, based government. We got to understand, folks, that Klay is an open attack on all of us, of all races, all ages, all of us. We already got a Congress that's not doing its job, and it would get worse, much worse, under this kind of governmental system. We can't have it. We got to demand true democracy, a truly representative, inclusive, just, multiracial democracy.
So, Barbara, tomorrow morning from 9 to 11:30, Wednesday, the 15th of October,
Yes.
The Transformative Justice Coalition is holding a rally on the steps of the Supreme Court. What message are you wanting, or are you going to? It's a coalition of groups led by the Transformative Justice Coalition. What message are you sending?
We are sending a powerful message. And first of all, if you're in the DC area, the greater DC area, you can get here. Please meet us at the front of the Supreme Court. We will have a rally where we will have speakers, we'll have information. You want to be there. Don't tell me that if you were born in the 60s, you would have been standing side by side with Dr. King. This is your Kingian moment. This is your Selma moment. This is your Washington, March on Washington moment. This is where you show up and you show out by being there and being heard. The court needs to understand that people care. Because remember, the greatest sins are done when? In the dark, when nobody's listening, nobody's looking. That's what they're hoping to do here. We also, so not only will we be there to speak truth to power, but we're also going to pray. Because LDF, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, will be arguing this case. Janae Nelson, the counsel, will be arguing this case. Remember, as Daryl would tell you, this is not the first time, people. This case has been argued. This case, the identical case, was argued in March. And the NAACP swept the floor. They did a magnificent job in that argument. So instead of deciding the case, they decided after the whole argument was over, instead, we're all looking for a decision. And instead of getting a decision from the court by the end of the term, we get a notice that there's going to be a new argument. And they later issue their questions, and what they've done is broaden the attack on the Voting Rights Act in those questions. So this just shows you that this court is, moving to the extreme. And I wanted to make one other point, folks. So we'll, as we pray, we're going to be educating, because most people don't know. Remember, you started this show by reciting the 15th Amendment. What they're saying is that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, they're also saying not only should there be no minority majority districts because they're, quote, reverse discrimination, unconstitutional, they're also saying that the entirety of Section 2, which is the anti-discrimination provision of the Voting Rights Act, should be stricken as unconstitutional. And let me be very clear, folks. Every bit of that amendment, every bit of Section 2 is a direct quote from the 15th Amendment. Come on, Wilmer. It's a direct quote. It's a direct recitation of the 15th Amendment. So they are making it very clear where they're coming from. And Daryl will tell you that the questions that they presented now are a direct arrow, a shot at the validity and the power of the Voting Rights Act. So it doesn't matter. People saying, well, this is just about congressional redistricting. No, it's not, folks. It's about every ability to have non-discrimination in voting. So if, in fact, as is true in Missouri, where they had a case where somebody hung a noose at the entrance of the polling site under the Voting Rights Act, if they strip out Section 2, you can't challenge that. You got to go under the Constitution, the 14th and 15th Amendments, and what's the difference? You got to argue intent. Whereas under the Voting Rights Act, you're able to argue the impact. You don't have to sit up there and find that smoking gun. You can just say it's clear that the actual impact, the actual effect of the effect test, the actual disparate impact of this test, of this action, will hurt and defeat the political power of people of color.
Daryl, one of the ironies in this, well, there are a couple things. So first of all, Barbara mentioned this case has already been litigated. The arguments had already been heard. I was reading an interview with Amy Coney Barrett. They were asking her about why have there been so many cases of late where the court does not provide the decision. They don't.
Reasoning.
They don't provide the reasoning. Thank you. And she says, well, because what people have to understand is, in these instances, we're not making a final disposition. We're not making a final decision. What we're doing is we're trying to put a pause or a hold here so that when the case does wind up getting relitigated in total, blah, 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 blah. Does any of that so-called rationale apply to the Klay case?
Not really to the Klay case, because what you're referring to is part of the shadow docket that the Supreme Court has, and what they do then is they'll take up a question.
Oh, they were talking about emergency. They were talking about emergency cases.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. She was. They were. Okay. So
that's the emergency docket.
They'll talk about emergency. Okay. Let. So here's my other question. The one of the ironies here is what's been going on. What started in Texas with redistricting when Trump asked Governor Abbott in Texas, I need you to find me 5 seats. The same way he had called Georgia and said, I need you to find me 11,000 votes. He called Texas and said, I need you to get me 5 seats. And then California is trying to respond. So what we now have is a battle of redistricting.
That you're precisely on point, and when you start connecting it all up, right, you see that this is really a battle that's being waged for this midterm election, so that one party can keep power, and that's really the battle that I see when you just connect all of these things that are occurring at this point in time, and when you have Texas being directed to find the new 5 congressional districts, 5 new Republican-leaning, conservative-leaning districts. You have other states now, Missouri, that's also following suit. You now have the other day, North Carolina has indicated that they're going to start doing theirs. So you have this real battle that's going on with regards to being able to gerrymander, right? Gerrymander these districts to try to protect and empower one political party. And what this Callais case has the ability to do, right? I mean, we know that this Supreme Court is the most conservative Supreme Court in the United States since the 1930s, all right? What this Callais case has the ability to do is to supercharge gerrymandering. That's what it has the ability to do, because what it will say is you can take away now this stuff about racial challenges under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Do what you want to do. We know that the Supreme Court has already green-lighted, gaslighted, if you will, to say that, if you say that the redistricting that you're doing, the gerrymandering you're doing is for partisan purposes and not racial purposes, it's fine. That's the Rucho case. That came from the Roberts Court, right? So this court is already laying the groundwork for making these types of arguments. That's why the Klay case is so important. The Roberts Court is also the court that gave us this Brnovich decision. What did it say? It said, well, if you make it too difficult for folks to vote one way, as long as you give them other ways to be able to access the ballot, it's okay. You can make it more difficult. You can change hours. You can change polling. You can do all this stuff to make it more difficult. This is that Roberts Court. When you start connecting all of these dots with regards to the Rucho case and the partisanship, the Brnovich case and the ways that you can vote, and now with this Klay case saying, go ahead and get rid of Section 2 of the Voting Rights. It's fine. You still have Equal Protection Clause. All of that is opening the way to have this gerrymandering supercharged so that you can influence the upcoming 2026 election and beyond, and really dilute the voting power of the Black and Brown community and other communities that are within those bubbles. But that's precisely where we are with this, Dr. Leon, and why it is so important for people to show out and show up on Wednesday, because the Supreme Court. Let's remember this. The Supreme Court doesn't operate in a bubble, right?
Mhm.
If they
Right.
think that they can sit in their little building and make decision and nobody is paying attention and no one is caring, then they're going to do what they want to do, right? Brown versus Board of Education, every other major decision, we've always had an inside out strategy. We had the attorneys inside the courtroom arguing. We had the community, the larger community on the outside, making noise, letting those justices know, we're watching you. We're going to be impacting. We're paying attention. And that's what's happening here in this case. And let me say this one last piece on that. Not
Mhm.
only will we be at the Supreme Court, they are rallying and praying and have the prayer vigil and everything else and raising awareness. And people can go to supremecourt.org and watch the oral arguments. But we're also have folks that are going to be at the site of the sin. They're going to be at the Louisiana State Capitol. And we have ministers and other folks from the new National Christian Leadership Movement that are going to be surrounding the State House in Louisiana in prayer, along with the League of Women Voters and the NAACP and other groups that are going to be down there. So this is the moment, I think that Barbara put it best. You asked, what would you have done if you were with John Lewis at the Edmund Pettus Bridge fighting for voting rights? You're getting ready to tell the story right now. And Wednesday, as this case is heard, and whether or not you're on the bridge with us or you're back sitting at home watching it on television.
Come on, and let me be clear. One question that you're getting to, Dr. Wilmer Leon, is that people don't understand how rare it is for the court to have a second argument.
Mhm.
It's extremely rare.
Right.
The most famous example of it was what? Brown versus Board. One of the most important cases ever decided by this
Brown
court.
too.
Right.
Mhm.
And so people got to understand that this really shows you how absolutely determined the conservative wing, the ultra conservative wing is of the Supreme Court. Remember that just this summer, Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch decided that they didn't want to stay a horrible decision out of the Eighth Circuit involving the Voting Rights Act. And this was over the private right of action. 6 of the justices, including Coney Barrett and including Kavanaugh and Roberts,
Mhm.
said, oh, yes, we better stay this because this is insane. How can you be saying that after 60 years of jurisprudence? I mean, they didn't issue a decision, but after 60 years of jurisprudence, how can you be saying that this somehow is that private plaintiffs can't bring these cases? So, folks, there is a 3-justice cabal within the court that hates the Voting Rights Act. That's ready to do whatever they can. The question is, who can they persuade on the court to come their way? I think that we got to be so careful. Separate but equal is back. That's what the Vonovich case was.
Mhm.
And then we saw it again in what? Nome versus Vasquez. One of the worst cases ever decided by the Supreme Court in the 21st century. I would say the 20th and 21st century. That's the racial profiling case that basically says you can arrest somebody if what? You can detain them, arrest them if they what? They speak Spanish? If they're
They're standing at a bus stop and they
right,
look suspicious
right.
and they're
And you
wearing
look
khakis with a
Latino.
lunch pail.
Right. And you look like a low-wage worker. Come on, folks. I mean,
If you work at
this,
a car wash.
right. You're hanging out at a Home Depot somehow. I mean, I don't even go to the Home Depot. They're not going to be arresting me. And, and let's be clear, people. It's not for African Americans. I want to make it a special point.
Mhm.
Don't be sitting out there thinking that it's only about, quote, brown people. Don't be sitting out there thinking it's only about Asian people. Don't be sitting out there thinking it's only about people who aren't, quote, born American. I've heard all this stuff.
Mhm.
Don't forget last week, they attacked in Chicago a South Shore apartment that was predominantly African American. Come on. They knew it going in.
Mhm.
They knew who lived there. They rappelled off of helicopters down the sides of that building. They awakened families in the middle of the night. They zip-tied 5-year-old children. And when somebody said, why, that's so inhumane to treat children that way. You can't treat kids that way. This is horrible. You're destroying them for life. One of the ICE people started chanting, F those kids. Okay? Folks, this is serious. We need to make sure that our political power is strong. I want to see you at that court tomorrow. I want to see you at the State House in Louisiana and Baton Rouge, if you can be there. Let's do what has to be done. Let's fight in this moment like so many others have fought for us beforehand.
Two dots I want to connect, since the show is connecting the dots. This just came to mind. You mentioned Chicago.
Yes.
And the police rappelling from the Black Hawk helicopter. What rarely gets discussed about Chicago is this facility that was known as Homan Square.
Talk about it. The black site.
Homan Square was a off-the-books Sears and Roebuck warehouse where the Chicago PD would pick people up off the street, take them and disappear them.
Yes.
A lot of folks have disappeared once they entered into this site, and they were off the books because they never made it to the precinct to be booked in the first place. So I bring, and this was in the mid 80s, I believe, and into the 90s.
Yes.
Where the Chicago PD was sweeping alleged gang members off the street, taking them to this off the book site, beating them.
Yes.
And in some instances, disappearing them. I bring that up to say Chicago has a history, and Chicago has a very recent history. Daryl, one of the other points dots I wanted to connect here, as you were talking about some of the other cases, is Citizens United. I think Citizens United factors into this in terms of allowing the amount of money into the political system, and at an incredibly disproportionate rate between corporate interests and the individual interests. Money is speech, and corporations are able to act as individuals. So I just wanted to, if you want to comment on that, but I thought in the dots you connected, I think Citizens United also plays a very important role here.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. Not only does Citizens United play an extremely important role here in talking about connecting this all together, let's connect all of these dots, these financial dots, is what you're laying out with Citizens United, because now you're talking about the funding and the funding sources that are coming up behind a lot of this. When we start dealing with the Supreme Court cases and funding sources, we start seeing that these super funded PACs, these super funded sources, go all through kinds of cases. Students for Fair Admissions. That's one of those cases that's a super funded case, right? And, look, I'm not putting this on TJC or on Barbara. This is all me talking. You also need to take a look at the funding sources that are going behind who's supporting some of these justices getting yachts, who's supporting some of these other things that are going on with regards to those funding sources. It all is interconnected. We've got to be certain that we see, when we think of the Supreme Court and we think about the decisions that are coming down, we want to think that this is a court that's above reproach. We want to think that these are decisions that are not being influenced because of money, either by the litigants or any other source, but the decisions that are coming down are decisions that are in the best interest, with the best judgment of the justices that are rendering those decisions. That's what we're looking for. And when we start putting more money and permitting money to just to go unchecked, really, into some of the political systems, what we're going to get out are decisions that are money oriented, not people oriented. And that's the concern of what's been laid out from Citizens United, as well as a slew of other decisions that are coming out. And and I do want to say this, because you lift up Pullman Square, and people start thinking that, oh, no, this is something that's just way out there a while back. It doesn't happen anymore. Let me bring you up to date, because there's a Pullman Square that happened where? In Louisiana, in Baton Rouge, in a place called Brave Cave, where they did the same thing, where they were taking people off the street. They committed no crime, but the police officers were bringing them in there. They put them in this abandoned warehouse, sat them in a chair, tortured them, beat information out of them until they confessed the things they had no information about, no connection with. All of this exists. The question then becomes, Jones, what are you talking about? You're talking about police now. You're supposed to be talking about Callais. Well, how does it connect? Here, let me connect it for you real quick. Because elections don't occur just for presidents. Elections don't occur just for members of Congress. Elections also occur for local mayors and for county executives, who appoint what? The chief of police, who control decisions and policies such as this. This is why Klay is so important. This is why it's so important to keep the money out and keep the people in the political decisions that are being made today, Dr. Leon.
Barbara, Daryl just mentioned that we're expecting an independent judiciary, especially as it relates to the Supreme Court. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the Republican nominees are vetted through the Federalist Society. So, and the Federalist Society has an incredibly narrow scope of ideology that these potential justices, their writings and their judicial temperament are compared against, so that they want to be sure. There's a reason why Amy Coney Barrett and Roberts and Clarence Thomas and Alito think along the same track, even though with the exception, I think, of Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh, were nominated by different presidents, because they've gone through the same gauntlet of ideology to be sure that their judicial temperament is going to provide the desired outcome. And two other points. One, Russell Vogt, who is one of the major author of Project 2025, has declared we're in a post-constitutional America. What does that mean? And before him, Steve Bannon, the Trump whisperer, told us that the objective of the administration is the deconstruction of the administrative state. Right. So they've already told us what they're about. Barbara Arnwine.
Yes, everyone, they want a fascistic state. They want, regardless of what kind of government it is, they want to have fascism. They want to have people, if you get an opportunity, look up Curtis Yarvin, Yarvin, who is the intellectual guru for J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, Steve Bannon, and Peter Thiel. Look him up, and you will see their belief in what they call an imperial presidency, and what that would do, and their whole belief in deconstructing governments, nation worldwide, and creating their little princely kingdoms and all this nonsense that they are perpetuating, and all their eugenics, their belief in inferiority among races, and that's why you should let them die. That's why you shouldn't care about no Medicare. If you're poor, you're obviously genetically inferior. They believe this stuff, people. Listen, that's a whole other show. But one thing I will say, Dr. Wilmer Leon, is thank you for having us, because I do want people to know that most media is not doing their job. Last week, the entire week of last week, you had all those hearings on the Texas redistricting. There was virtually no coverage And if they had been watching that, you would have known that there was evidence introduced in that case showing that the most of the map drawing that they did in order to give him those 5 seats was racially biased.
Yep.
And they talked about the racial data they use. Folks, it is so important. As we're looking at Barry Weiss getting ready to be the
Mhm.
the chief for
Of
in
CBS.
charge of CBS News. Folks, you were in trouble. She is a far right real problematic anti-DEI hateful person. So I think we are in an era where the best that we got is us. And let's stand up for us. Let's be there tomorrow at the Supreme Court, 9 o'clock to 11:30. Please show up. Please educate your friends. If you can't, educate your friends. Watch that SupremeCourt.gov. Be there for us. We love you. Thank you.
And Daryl, well, let's Mel, let's put up that flyer one more time. And Daryl, I don't know how you can top Barbara, and I'm not going to ask you to. I'm going to ask you to just add to. Take us out, Daryl Jones.
So much. Thank you so much, Dr. Leon. And as Barbara said, it's so important that we show up. And let's just be clear. We know that everyone is not going to be able to make it to Washington, D.C. to be at the U.S. Supreme Court. But what we also know is that the Supreme Court justices do watch. They do want to know who's paying attention. So if you go to supremecourt.org, you can tune in and watch the argument. And therefore, you're letting them know that you're on the case, that you're there, that you're paying attention, that you're concerned, that this is an issue for you. If you want more information and a nice overview, a brief overview of the Klay case, we encourage you to go to tjcoalition.org, tjcoalition.org, and you will find the virtual voting moment video that's put together, which is 2-3 minutes long, to just break it all down to you. So tjcoalition.org, and you'll be able to find that information. You can also find it on YouTube. Dr. Leon, thank you for what you do in educating the community. Thank you for being part of this fight. Thank you for standing on the Edmund Pettus Bridge today with us in Washington, D.C., fighting for voting rights. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm canceling my classes tomorrow, so I can be down there with you.
Tell them to come with us.
I can't have Barbara looking at me saying you weren't with me on the bridge. I can't. I don't want none of that. Daryl, I can deal with you. I can't deal with her.
You don't want that smoke.
I don't want none of that smoke. No. So in all seriousness, tomorrow, Wednesday the 15th, from 9 to 11:30, the steps of the and bring the dog too. The steps of the Supreme Court. This Callais case is serious. Really quickly, Daryl, one more time. tjcoalition.org.
tjcoalition.org. Yes, sir.
That's where folks need to go to get the word. Appreciate it, y'all. Thank you so much. Have a blessed remainder of your day.
Thank you.
All right. That's Attorney Barbara Arnwine, founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition, tjcoalition.org, tjcoalition.org. Daryl Jones, Attorney Daryl Jones, also a chair of the board of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Folks, this is no joke. This is serious business. It might, in some regards, sound a bit arcane. It might, in some regards, sound a bit academic, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to your protecting your right to vote. That's really what this all comes down to, is protecting your right to vote. We are in a republic. Small r. We are in a republic. We elect individuals to represent our interests. But if they draw maps to minimize the impact of your vote, so that you never, we didn't even get into this conversation, but really what this could, I think the argument could be made that they're taking you back to the white only primary. Because if they draw the district lines in a manner to where in a primary, you don't even get the opportunity to elect someone who is from your community, who has a background similar to yours, that has an understanding of your reality and your needs, then again, this is the reinvention of the poll tax. This is the reinvention of the literacy test. This is the reinvention of the white only primary, just by other means, because you're locked out of the process. Now, whether you decide you want to vote or whether you decide you don't want to vote, that's your personal decision. But you at least need to be afforded the ability to make the decision. And what they're trying to do with this Callais case in Louisiana is put another nail in the coffin of the Voting Rights Act. And you got to be there to be sure that they're not successful. I want to thank Barbara Arnwine and Daryl Jones so much, the attorneys from the Transformative Justice Coalition, for joining me today. Thank you all so much for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon. New episode tomorrow. Dr. Radhika Desai is going to join us. Please follow, subscribe, leave a review, share the show. Follow us on social media. All the links are below in the show description. And remember, folks, this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge. Talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. Until then, I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Have a blessed remainder of your day. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.